Bonjour and welcome to the Total Soccer Show. My name is Daryl Grove and I'm joined by a man who's got until June 7th to learn French. His name is Taylor Rockwell. Bonjour.
Bonjour. I know why you're doing that, but for a moment I wanted to believe that it was because you assumed that all of the Canadian national team was coming from French Canada and you wanted them to feel welcome.
I did enjoy looking across the table and seeing you figure out why I was bonjouring you.
Yeah.
It's because the US Women's National
classy.
Team...
That's why, Daryl.
That's why. Classy with that French stuff. It's because the US Women's National Team has qualified for the Women's World Cup, which will be June 7th, 2019, by beating Jamaica in the CONCACAF Championship semi-final. Final score, 6-0.
Yeah.
But literally, this was over after 2 minutes.
Yep. Pretty much. That's when Tobin Heath scores, and that's what it seemed like maybe Jamaica weren't going to be pulling back multiple goals in this game.
Yeah. So I think we said going into the CONCACAF Championship that it is hard to analyse US Women's National Team games when they are so much better than the opposition.
Yep.
But I will say this. I'll give credit to the US for always getting an early goal.
Yep.
Right? This has never been in doubt.
There's no complacency. Yeah.
No complacency. They are at it from the very beginning. Tobin Heath scored that, was a rebound off a Horan shot after 2 minutes.
It's almost like they've established that they can be a little bit complacent after they score the first goal. Like, we can all relax as soon as we score. So we're going to score in the first minute or two, and then we can all relax.
Actually, wasn't this game 5-0 at half-time, and then it took until the 84th minute for that Alex Morgan penalty to make it 6-0? But there's still a lot of the US with the ball. I don't think we should go through every goal because essentially there's a lot of not great Jamaican defending.
I have a lot of thoughts on Alex Morgan's penalty. I don't.
You don't?
Yeah, I'm with you.
I mean, it was a nice turn and then she got dragged down. Yeah. But again, bad goalkeeping for Alex Morgan's penalty. The one thing I will say is what I really liked about this is the US made goals happen by really slicing through the defence as opposed to everything being set pieces. Yeah. In fact, I think the Rapinoe low cross to Morgan was the only straight set-piece goal.
That sounds about right. I mean, aside from the penalty, obviously.
Yeah, obviously.
But I'm with you. I think that's true. And I think, to your earlier point, when you are playing a team that is likely to be lower in terms of the competition than what you're used to or what you're going to face in the World Cup next summer, there is that inclination.
They still might make it. There's the third-place playoff, Jamaica, Panama.
Very true. But I think it's always not understandable to do it, but you see it happen all the time as teams kind of back off and maybe they don't have that kind of killer instinct. And I think that first goal, the reason why it stands out to me so much is because Tobin Heath she kind of starts to move a little bit, then she makes her run into the box and the ball doesn't come. And I think if you are complacent, if you're a little bit frustrated that you haven't scored yet or whatever, that she might have just stopped that run and been like, I was open, you should have played it. But instead she stays on her toes, she stays alert, she adjusts, and I think because she kind of stays after it, she's able to so calmly finish that ball. If she's scrambling after stopping to complain and then has to go back to 100% to get to that ball, I don't know if she finishes as calmly.
While we're lavishing praise on Tobin Heath, I enjoyed that in the build-up to this goal, she goes at two defenders, doesn't try to beat them, and she might have been able to get past two defenders. We've seen her do that many times before. Instead, she sees her right back, Kelly O'Hara, is wide open, so she just turns and plays it backwards. And then O'Hara puts in not a great cross because it's weirdly diving headed away off the floor for her hand to pick up. But I just like the idea of Heath being really all about just making sure something happens early on. I want to credit Jill Ellis as well. It seems like she's got this team in a mindset of we're going to go out there and we're going to wrap this game up early.
Yeah. I mean, and I think you can see that across the board. You look at the second goal, it's an amazing ball from the back from Dahlkemper, when it's like a 50-yard ball over the top. Again, to your point, very bad defending from the Jamaican fullback. I forget her name. I apologize. But maybe she doesn't want it said on air because she really does just start run. She does that thing where she runs towards the ball as soon as it's kicked and then realizes like I have made a huge mistake and then can't back in position despite backpedaling.
Arrested Development style.
Yeah, exactly. Hello Darkness, my old friend, starts playing. Sounds of Silence starts playing, and then Megan Rapinoe scores.
But this is the Rapinoe sort of near post top corner Donovan-esque goal.
Yes. Yeah. And I think Ali Wagner was doing the commentary. I apologize if I'm wrong there, but she makes the point that Rapinoe cuts off the defender's recovery run, and that's exactly what she does. As soon as she settles this ball, she cuts across. We talked about this many times. That means either the defender has to slow up or it means they're going to concede a penalty, basically. Because she does that, she's then able to kind of calmly collect herself, evaluate the situation, recognize that the top corner is open, and puts the ball exactly there.
So it finishes 6-0.
Yep.
6-0 to the United States. They are officially qualified for the Women's World Cup, as we said.
Still have a game to go?
But there's still a game to go. There's the CONCACAF Championship final. It's against Canada, who beat Panama 7-0.
You got it.
I think. That final is Wednesday evening. This Wednesday evening, USA versus Canada. This will be, weirdly, the first proper test for the United States. When John D. Halloran was on the show doing the preview, he basically made the case to me that even though both teams, because we assumed it was US-Canada in the final, even though both teams will have qualified, both these teams are still all about winning. Both these programs are still all about winning. Don't expect them to take foot off the gas or anything for this final.
No,
right?
I mean, because it's
about regional dominance.
It's but it's also the difficult situation that the U.S. women find themselves in of because they are now this juggernaut that it can't be stopped. As soon as they're stopped, it becomes a headline. It becomes a talking point.
Yeah.
And so I think for Canada, if you can stop the juggernaut, if you can win that game, if you can qualify as the CONCACAF champion, maybe it gives you that much more motivation, that much more kind of confidence heading into a major international tournament.
All right, so we'll have eyes on that game Wednesday night. Oh, actually, we have a league game at the same time. We'll have DVRs on that game Wednesday night.
That works.
And then eyes on it later.
Yep.
Also, just quick note, third place playoff, Jamaica, Panama. My understanding is that will be first time at the World Cup for one of those nations.
Yes, you are correct. So that one, I think you could argue, is maybe the more dramatic of the two games, and probably the one.
Well, there's more on the line, right?
Yeah, there's more on the line, but there's also therefore more likely to be like big nerves, which could mean big swings in how that game goes.
All right.
So I look forward to seeing what happens there, but I very much look forward to seeing what happens in the CONCACAF final.
You ready for a sad segue?
Yes.
All right. So from a team that just qualified for the World Cup to a team that is very much in the rebuilding phase after not qualifying for the World Cup, it's the US men's national team. So we talked on Thursday night. They lost 4-2 to Colombia. This Tuesday evening, they play Peru.
They sure do.
Play Peru. And Taylor Rockwell, pop quiz, hot shot. What time is the actual kickoff time?
Oh, the actual kickoff time? I'm going to drop it back. I think I'm going to say like 7:53 this time. I was a little bit too far forward last time.
So I'm looking at the US Soccer website. 7:30 Eastern is what they're saying the kickoff time in East Hartford, Connecticut is going to be. You're saying 7:53?
I don't know. It just depends on how much pageantry there is and whatever weird thing they have to do before the game can start.
So last time out they said 7:30 against Colombia, and it turned out to be 7:45. So I'm going with that.
Okay,
right, and we'll see which one of us gets that one right.
We will indeed.
That game is on ESPN. I guess tune in at 7:30 if you want to see the pregame.
Sure.
Let's say that.
And see a countdown timer that will infuriate you as the seconds tick off.
Yeah. All right. Before you talk about Peru, and then maybe we'll try and pick our US lineup.
Sure.
I do want to go back to the Colombia game for just a moment.
Okay.
I feel like in hindsight we were maybe a little too negative or a little too harsh about the US in this game.
Why do you feel that way?
Because I rewatched again, and there is a spell from like the 10th minute, which is after those two early chances that came down the left side, to the 36th minute where James scored that beautiful goal. Well, we actually were pretty decent, and more specifically, Michael Bradley, who I felt like I was too harsh on. Remember talking about how I was thinking he backed off too much? He was actually quite good at winning balls in midfield.
What do you mean when you say winning balls?
He did his, the thing I was complaining about where I said that Bradley was too often cutting down the angles and trying to be too cerebral and not stepping out to win. What I saw him out doing when I rewatched was he would do that like defensive crouch, the defensive hop, but then when a Colombia player made a mistake, he would step and win it. And I haven't looked at the stats, but I'm pretty sure he's going to have a lot of probably tackles, interceptions or recoveries in that spell, and then early in the second half as well. And so I think there's maybe like a bitter taste in our mouth from what happened later in the game where Colombia absolutely toyed with the US men's national team.
Yeah, I mean, but I don't then, why does one negate the other one, though?
Because I think I'd gone, personally, I'm just talking for me, not for you, that I'd gone quite hard on saying that Bradley was too timid the whole game. And I think it was more just like second half as opposed to the entire game.
All right.
Yeah.
I can see that. I think part of it for me, though, is that we are so consistently positive, or we try to look for silver linings and moments of positivity in otherwise negative events. I think the only time we haven't really been able to do that was in the USA Trinidad game in World Cup qualifying. And so I think maybe like part of it for me was that the reaction to that show was a little bit more like, whoa, you guys are really negative. Whoa, you guys are really upset. Like nobody else seems to be this upset about it. And so I take your point that maybe aspects of it were better than we thought, but I still think the things that gave me concern were big enough that they will continue to give me concern unless we see otherwise, maybe against Peru.
Maybe against Peru. All right, so shall we talk about Peru?
Sure.
Here's the question. Is Peru more or less of a challenge than Colombia?
I think they are right up near what Colombia offer, the only difference being James Rodriguez.
I think that's
that
about right.
said, Christian Cueva does a pretty passable impression.
Yeah, he's not quite James level genius, but he's. I think we should be right in saying that this isn't going to be like a huge step down, and the US can kind of coast. It's going to be almost as tough. And there's a lot of weird similarities actually, right? So instead of James, you've got Christian Cueva. Instead of Arias, who was killing us with the overlaps, you've got Advíncula, who you may remember from the World Cup. So dangerous, overlapping from right back really fast. That didn't France, Didier Deschamps, that's where he did let's put Blaise Matuidi on him. They basically man-marked Advíncula because he was so dangerous. Yeah. So there's that to look out for.
There is that. I mean, ahead of him will be, we think, unless they change things around, which they may well do because this is their second friendly as well in this break, we expect it to be Carrillo starting ahead on the right wing. In a 4-2-3-1, maybe a 4-1-4-1. But either way, he'll be out there. I
guarantee a 4-2-3-1.
Yeah, and I think you're going to see a lot of Carrillo maybe dribbling inside with Advíncula advancing on the wing. But the other thing that frightens me is that they also seem very capable of doing the opposite of that, where Carrillo will drift wide and pull the fullback with him or the defender with him, and then that opens space for Advíncula to dart right through. So it seems like it doesn't have to.
He makes an interior run through the middle.
One of their best chances that I don't believe they scored off of against Chile was Advíncula running inside.
I just remember I watched that footage this morning. Yeah, he ran pretty much straight through the area, right? He nearly scored.
Yeah. And so that I think is why I'm like strangely still not as maybe up as you are on the USA-Colombia game, but more optimistic for this game. Because
I'm not up, I'm just less down.
Gotcha. But I want to see how the United States responds. That was obviously an area of deficiency. We were frustrated that it didn't seem like it was really dealt with, either by the manager or by the players. So how do they deal with it this time? Do they game plan accordingly? Because the other thing I kind of saw consistently was Christian Cueva drifting out to the right-hand side as well to further create overloads. And it seems like that's going to be an area or like a focal point of the attack for Peru, and so I hope the United States set up accordingly to deal with it.
Shall we talk US setup later in the show and run through the various Peruvian threats?
Sure.
Right here. One thing I want to say is Peru's World Cup, not in hindsight, Peru's World Cup went badly, right? But had Christian Cueva scored that penalty against Denmark, I think they really could have been the darling of the World Cup. They were all set up, playing this really attractive sort of pass and move and dribble soccer. Like in our preview, we watched a lot of Peru pre-World Cup under Gareca, who's still the coach, and we were really excited about them, right? And I don't think we were wrong. I think they just had a slice of either bad fortune or one bad mistake in Cueva's penalty miss that really, really cost them. They lost 1-0 to Denmark, and their World Cup was got sidetracked really early.
I mean, I would add to that Paulo Guerrero and the situation there where he was suspended, and then there was a lengthy appeal process, and then he ended up not being suspended, but that still changes the way you prepare for a tournament, and you have to adjust everything you're doing. Then suddenly you have to adjust it all back. And even though that can seem like, oh, great, we've got our star striker back, we're going to be even stronger, if you've spent the preceding 3 weeks preparing to not have that striker, then suddenly you're asking at least a couple players to do something fundamentally different.
That's true.
And you can have that, not necessarily unrest, but just those moments where things aren't as organic as they might be if they'd been training together.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. Yeah. Plus, I think Guerrero just hadn't been able to play much soccer for a while, right?
And I say that to say that, looking back at Peru's recent friendly results, they're not great. They've won 1, lost 2, but they lost to Germany and the Netherlands, I believe.
Okay.
They beat Chile 3-0. That was their most recent one.
Yeah.
But it's a lot of the same players, both from the World Cup, and they seem to play consistently the same 9 to 10 players. Maybe there's a few changes here and there.
So, okay, let's talk about consistency and change. I would argue what's been really consistent is the 2 holding midfielders, right? You've almost always got Tapia, who I believe plays for Feyenoord, is a guy that you were impressed with when we saw him, and Yotun, who plays for Orlando, so MLS fans will be familiar with him. 2 holding midfielders. Ahead of them, usually Christian Cueva will play central attacking midfielder. He will literally wear the number 10 shirts. Edison Flores to the left, and on the right, the aforementioned Carrillo. The change-up has been the old guard is out, right? So Guerrero out. Jefferson Farfan, I don't believe, is on this roster. Instead, it's Raul Rui Diaz, who looks a handful. Seattle fans will know.
Does. I would say, though, that the most glaring Raul Rui Diaz moment from that game against Chile was the reason why Peru do give me concern is because they did a lot of that kind of Colombia, like moving the ball. Even when they're inside our 18, it was like a lot of passing and passing and passing. And then I'm going to shoot. No, I'm going to lay it off. Oh, but I'm going to shoot. No, I'm going to lay it off too.
Yeah.
To the point where it went to Ruidíaz, who was unmarked and wide open 6 yards from goal, and he hit it straight at the goalkeeper. So I just feel like there's going to be a little bit of pressure on him to maybe score a goal or prove that he can score the goals, not just look good up top.
It's weird to say I have faith in him because he's playing against us, but based on what I've seen of him playing for Seattle, where I looked at the numbers, 12 games, 7 goals since joining Seattle. I believe he's been part of what's really turned that Seattle season around. To me, he looks very smart at making little runs off of defenders inside the area, and then Christian Cueva or Flores or Carrillo will slip him in. And I think that makes for a dangerous connection, right?
I would agree.
He's only a little fella, so he's not going to offer you much of a physical challenge in the air or hold-up play or anything like that, but he's just very... I'll call them quick little darting movements to get in behind, get on the end of nice little slipped passes, and he will make the most of a small amount of space because he's very good at one touch to separate, one touch to shoot.
And it also seems like with those little darting runs you mentioned, he seems very good at if the defense is trying to hold a line at, say, the top of the 18, he has that confidence to maybe drift 2 yards beyond them and see if somebody goes with him or see if when the defense collapses, he finds himself onside or... as was the case a couple times against Chile, he can pull a defender with him. And now, not only has he pushed that line back 2 or 3 yards, but he's opened up 2 or 3 yards of space in front for more shooting opportunities and more possession around the top of the box.
So that's going to be the challenge for the US, right, is to not let Ruidíaz slip in behind, but also don't let him stretch things out so that there's too much space for Christian Cueva, especially, to get on the ball. Because, again, not as good as James, right, but... still a very dangerous attacking midfielder who can dribble, who can play quick combinations, who seems to have a good link-up with Flores to his left and Carrillo to his right. That, to me, is a fearsome front 3/4.
And I think the other thing that I noticed with Cueva and with Tapia and Yotun to some extent is the trailing runs, that if you do get Peru breaking down either channel, you'll see the other winger really making an effort to get into like the far side of the box. You'll have Ruidíaz there. And then you'll have that trailing run in behind, maybe just for that cutback or in case that ball spills. And consistently against Chile, they were open at the top of the box for about 20 yards from goals. Yeah,
and in the end, actually, it wasn't Tapia or Yotun, right? It was Aquino who came on for Tapia, I believe, quite
in
late.
In the 74th minute.
And scored 2 goals, right? With, I think, if I remember correctly, both goals were those late runs you were talking about.
They were. The second one was more impressive, I think, because it's the run, but then it's the presence of mind, too. I think he cuts the same defender twice before shooting, so it's a very calm, composed finish. I bring that up only because, yes, he's a midfielder, but it's very much the opposite of what Ruidíaz did against Chile. So, again, I just wonder if there will be that little bit of extra pressure on Ruidíaz to score a goal. Maybe we see him shoot once or twice when maybe he shouldn't be shooting.
Be a bit more greedy. Yeah. I think I want to see that if it's a bad decision and it goes well.
Yeah, I'd be all right with that.
So the final thing before we move on to the US is to say, with the Peru lineup, I think the interesting thing for me will be, is it Tapia and Yotun that start as the 2 holding midfielders? Or did Aquino scoring, 2 goals in 15 minutes from defensive midfield?
Yeah.
Is that enough to nudge, I'm going to say either Tapia or Yotun out of the starting 11, but I've got eyes on Yotun more because one of them plays in MLS and one of them plays in the Eredivisie.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. But I think you're right that maybe that is one change we might see. There have been a few other rotations here and there, but generally we expect the same core from Peru. I would say one thing that I did note from that Chile friendly before we move on is that the times that Chile were able to really produce anything, they got a few set pieces here and there, a couple corners, but the 2 from open play both came from aggressive pressing and putting Peru under pressure so that they were uncomfortable. And when they didn't have the time to sort of pick their passes the way they wanted to, they turned the ball over and gave up counterattacking opportunities. So I think if you can put them under pressure higher up the field and don't let them settle into their rhythm, you can kind of disrupt what they're trying to do and cause problems.
So to give a quick preview of our US conversation, that's what the US kind of tried to do to Colombia.
Kind of tried to do.
And it didn't always work. Maybe that same thing could be more successful against Peru.
I'd be all right with that.
Brace yourself for that conversation in just a few minutes. Because first, today's show is sponsored by SeatGeek. SeatGeek is sponsoring us once again. SeatGeek is the place to get tickets. Couple of taps on your phone or on a laptop if you're old school, and you can buy and sell tickets to live events.
Are laptops old school? I would have thought like typewriters.
They're older school than smartphones.
Okay.
SeatGeek does not work on typewriters. I guess there's no typewriter app.
I mean, have you tried?
There's going to be some weird steampunk future with typewriters and apps. Right?
Let's hope so. Let's just hope there's a future, and then we'll go from there. Yes, so SeatGeek, as you said, just a couple of taps. You can see what events there are near you or not near you, as I'm going to suggest, because there are tickets available to this USA Peru friendly.
Are there? Mm-hmm. Okay.
I think the lowest I saw was 50.
All those Colombians at the US Colombia game, they're not going to go to the US Peru game.
Actually, now that you mentioned that, I did have in my notes, I have a strong feeling this will be a very pro-Peru crowd.
Really?
Yes. It seemed like they played the friendly against Chile in Florida, and it was a lot of red, but it was a lot of red and white is what I saw, not a lot of like red and blue and white, which would have been Chile. So I have a feeling you're going to see a very large Peru contingent, maybe not dominant the way it was for Colombia, but I bet you see a lot of red shirts that aren't USA Bomb Pop shirts.
I'm ignorant of the demographics. I don't know how many Peruvians in the Northeast, for example.
I would guess that there's at least a few in New York and Boston. So that would be my guess.
I've heard of those cities.
Including our friend Vasily, who is half Peruvian and lives in Boston.
Of course.
Yes. Vasily, they half Peruvian, as you would have expected.
You're saying there are tickets available to USA Peru on SeatGeek? The
lowest I saw was 51, and I will say that was definitely the lowest I saw. Far more like tickets available closer to the $100 range. Surprisingly.
Thanks, US Soccer.
Yeah.
Okay, but if there's one available for 51 and you use the TSS discount on SeatGeek, you can get $20 off that.
There we go.
And then it's basically a good price for a soccer match.
Yeah.
Right? That's about what I'm willing to pay.
There we go.
So here's what you do. You open SeatGeek. I mean, first of all, download the app. You should do that anyway. It's free and you have access to seeing all these tickets. Then go to the settings tab, enter promo code TSS, 3 letters for Total Soccer Show, TSS, and you will get $20 off your first SeatGeek purchase. So 51 minus 20, for example, just to pick a number at random, would be 31.
I feel like you bought yourself some time there. I feel like you did the 51 minus 20 would be just the 31.
It was a dramatic pause.
Sure it was.
Do you really have that low an opinion of my mathematical skills?
I've seen you count.
With my toes.
A couple times.
I didn't use them this time.
So that's the downside to figuring out if the other team has 11 on the field, is Daryl does have to take his shoe off to get that 11th player.
Unless they don't.
Yeah.
If I don't take a shoe off, you know there are men missing.
So we're always hoping they are.
So once again, TSS for $20 off your first SeatGeek purchase. Challenge for you. Can you remember the SeatGeek tagline?
SeatGeek, life's an event. We've got the tickets.
Yes.
And I didn't even make one up because I don't think that would have gone well. So thank you to SeatGeek, as Daryl said. Let's get back to this USA-Peru game. Let's look at the United States, shall we?
Yes. Okay, let's first take into account what's happened. What's happened is Zach Steffen has got a hamstring injury. He has gone back to Columbus. I mean, there's a part of me that thinks he's gone back to celebrate the success of the Save the Crew effort.
Yeah.
But he is out of the US camp. So our available goalkeepers are Guzan and Ethan Horvath. Dave Sarakin has already said Brad Guzan is starting this game against Peru.
That he is.
Dave Sarakin has also said there will be changes.
Do you know how I know that Dave Sarakin said there will be changes?
No.
Because I saw it in a text from you.
Oh, yeah.
Where I also learned that Daryl's phone autocorrects Sarakin to Sriracha.
It actually didn't autocorrect. I just thought that might be funny.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh. I had hoped it was Sriracha. I was mostly impressed that you spelled it properly, because that's one of those words. I've written it, I would say, at least 20 times. Never remember how to spell it.
I can't remember. There's a reason I
2
had
hours.
to remember it recently. Actually, wasn't it you? Wasn't I getting your food order from somewhere and you asked for
that doesn't seem
the
like
sriracha something?
That doesn't seem like
Maybe it was Shannon. Right.
There you go.
There are 2 people that I pick up food for.
Constantly confusing your wife with your podcast partner.
There are only so many people that I pick up food for.
This is true.
Anyway, Dave Sarakin.
I might pick it up more often for you than my wife. I mean, there we go.
Yeah, lots of
mentions. Let's get to Dave Sarakin.
Let's get to Dave Sarakin. He said, I can't remember the exact phrase, actually. Let's try and pull that up. He basically said there will be changes, but then he wasn't very specific about how many changes.
Did he say it in like the Daniel Plainview way of like, there will be changes? Like, was it that dramatic, or was it just more like, yeah, we're going to make some changes?
He said, I drink your Gatorade.
Exactly. Well done, my friend.
Okay, so definitely Guzan in goal. Yep. Then after this, there will be changes. I find that then very hard to predict.
Agreed.
What this 11 is going to be. Do you want to maybe take a stab at a few?
Yeah, I think that anytime a manager says there will be changes aside from Juan Carlos Osorio, it's really easy to think like, oh, they're going to change 10. It's going to be a completely different roster. It may well be that. That's something I would expect Osorio to do. With Dave Sarakin, I feel like what that might mean is like 5 or 6 changes.
Okay.
Could be all 11. Who knows? But I would be surprised. And I think looking at what he did last time as my example
Colombia?
here. No, sorry, the last round of friendlies.
Between Brazil and Mexico. Yeah.
When he made similar changes, but for example, it wasn't Brooks and Miazga both out, CCV and Aaron Long in. It was CCV in, but then Miazga stuck around.
So that's Brooks went home, right?
Yeah.
Brooks went back to Germany. I suspect a similar thing will happen here, mostly because John Brooks is a very tall, very strong, but very delicate flower.
Yeah.
So we don't want to injure John Brooks. It's not good for him. It's not good for us. So maybe there's a case that Matt Miazga keeps starting, and alongside Matt Miazga, it is CCV or Aaron Long, maybe getting a half each.
Yeah, that's possible.
Yeah.
I would say, and I don't mean this to be as insulting as it's about to sound, but I would say, there's a chance that maybe if this were a non-interim manager, that, Dave Sarachan would want to see, okay, I saw what Miazga and CCV can do. I've seen what Miazga and Brooks can do. I want to see what Brooks and CCV can do together just to figure out what other combinations might work. But the reality is he's probably not going to be there much longer, so you don't really need to experiment that much from that sort of perspective.
I think also it's worth putting this in context. This is another reason why I feel better about the Colombia game, the 4-2 defeat, than I did at the time, is that because we know Sarachan's not going to be around much longer, right? Maybe there's a new coach by November. This may be his last game, in fact. It's really worth thinking about some of these games as just getting players on the field, getting them some experience, getting them some US men's national team experience. So in some ways it kind of doesn't matter too much if it goes badly. It's more about just getting someone the experience, right?
I don't disagree.
So that's why I wouldn't mind seeing a theoretically weaker centre-back pairing against Peru, because it's maybe not about getting a result, it's about getting those players some minutes.
That makes sense.
You know what I'm saying?
What is that duffel bag with U.S. Soccer's logo on it and a large amount of cash sticking out of it, Daryl? I'm just wondering. Did they just drop that off for you? Is that what happened?
You don't need to know about that.
Someone's a shill.
You don't need to know about that.
No, I'm kidding.
But you get what I'm saying. In some
100%.
ways, in the span of history, the result against Colombia and the result against Peru matters less than, say, Tim Weah playing a bunch of minutes, or even Anthony Robinson playing a bunch of minutes. In a lot of ways, that matters more.
I would agree with you completely. And that's why I kind of started here, is because I do think we'll see more changes going forward. I think there's a chance, and I would honestly like to see 3 of the same 4 start in terms of the back line. I think I would like to see Robinson and Yedlin again, and then I wouldn't mind seeing one of Brooks and Miazga, probably Miazga to keep him going, with CCV there. That's what I think I would like to see.
So we seem to agree on the centre-backs. I agree with Anthony Robinson.
Yeah, I figured you would.
I think he should start, not because he had a good game against Colombia.
For the opposite.
But because he had a bad game against Colombia. And I think the challenge of going up against the Carrillo-Advincula combo, I mean, to refresh people's memories from 10 minutes ago, Advincula is the overlapping right back. Sometimes he underlaps and cuts inside. It's going to be a really confusing challenge, but not quite as bad as playing against James and Arias, right? So it's almost like, to me, it's almost like the James-Arias test was unfair. It's like a test that you can't study for, whereas the Carrillo Advincula test is a test that you have a chance to pass.
I'm going to extend your metaphor analogy to, it's like he was given the really hard test, and then the teacher felt bad for him and was like, "Look, I'm going to give you, it's still going to be difficult, but it's not going to be maybe quite as challenging, and we'll see if you can handle this one a little bit better. Make sure you study this time, though."
I prefer to see it as they're like, "Oh, sorry, we gave you the wrong test. We gave you next year's test."
That still sounds a little bit like, "Oh no, you're not nearly good enough for this," which is not what I want to see. I want it to be more that Anthony Robinson was just slacking. Just being a bad boy in the back of the bus and not not studying up front.
But again, this is part of the learning process, right? To just keep it on an educational theme. So it's worth seeing Anthony Robinson out there. Maybe Ben Sweat gets another 20, 30, but I'd love to see Robinson start.
And I also would say that it's not like we saw Ben Sweat come in and solve all of the problems for Anthony Robinson.
No, he just repeated the same mistakes.
It was the exact same stuff. So I think I would much rather see...
He got the same test.
Yeah. I would much rather see Anthony Robinson given more of an opportunity to shine in potentially more favorable circumstances.
My disagreement is over on the other side. I would like to see Reggie Cannon start, partly out of curiosity, partly because I wasn't thrilled about DeAndre Yedlin against Colombia. I think for all the talk about Anthony Robinson being out of position and balls getting in behind, they went down that side a lot, either because they targeted Robinson or because that's where James and Arias were playing, so they naturally go that side anyway. They didn't go down the left that much, but Yedlin did not do a lot to stop them when they did, right? And he was out of position sometimes.
You mean the right?
Our right, their left, So Yedlin was caught out, I would say with just as high a percentage as Robinson, just not as many times. And then we sort of deliberately forgot to talk about it on the show. We definitely talked about it in studio. The scissor kick goal, DeAndre Yedlin jumps with, is it Borja who scores it, or was it Quintero? So. I think it's Borja. Jumps with him and turns his back, which is, in my opinion, an unforgivable sin for a professional defender, an unforgivable sin for an amateur defender.
And he's done it a lot.
Don't turn your back on the ball.
So it's an unforgivable sin like 6 times over?
Yes. And which, to me, sorry, the point I'm driving at is I still feel like DeAndre Yedlin, we sort of know what we've got. He doesn't need any more experience. So why not get Reggie Cannon out there?
See, I disagree with you a little bit in the sense that I think anytime you can get a defense more reps together so they learn how to play and like learn how to function as a unit, I think that makes sense. I think where you've swayed me is that, I think you have, because I think DeAndre Yedlin has not been particularly good for the United States
That's
of late.
The other reason to basically just drop him for poor performance.
Well, it's that, but it's also to, like, I think you can go down one of two roads. It can be you want to get this, like, back four gelled and they all know how to play together. There's that argument, but then the counter to that argument is, but then you're only giving these 4 guys all the reps, and you're sort of telling them, you guys are number 1 across the board, so you don't really have that much competition. If Reggie Cannon comes in and has a really, really good game and doesn't turn his back on a cross, then maybe DeAndre Yedlin has to go home and think about things and work that much harder.
So what I'd be looking for from Reggie Cannon if he starts at right back is, one, dealing with Edson Flores, which is no mean feat. He's a talented winger. 2, his overlaps are often very impressive for FC Dallas. I think he has a better sort of touch than DeAndre Yedlin. I'm often critical of Yedlin for just kicking the ball ahead of himself and accelerating and not really settling the ball and playing a simple pass. I would imagine we'll be better in possession with Cannon at right back than with Yedlin at right back.
All right.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't mind seeing Reggie Cannon. I will not be surprised if it's DeAndre Yedlin and Reggie Cannon maybe gets like 15 minutes or so at the end.
I guess if I had to settle, I'd settle for a Cannon debut at some point.
That works for me. Yeah. What about going forward?
This is where it gets really complicated, right? So I would argue that this US roster, the midfield is kind of a mess at this point. Like there's no real number 10. There's no real right winger, which is weird. But if you think about it, every winger who wasn't Christian Pulisic, who would have been on the roster, prefers to play on the left, right? Kenneth Sayes plays the left. Jonathan Amon prefers to play on the left, even though he's right-footed. Tim Weah seems to play on the left, prefer it and play better. I think he prefers to play forward anyway. And who's the fourth guy? Fafa Picault, right-footed, prefers to play on the left.
Yep.
So there's no obvious guy to play on the right wing, which I think is how we ended up with Marky Delgado sort of playing right mid for the last 15 against Colombia.
Yeah.
So it makes it really hard to pick a team because someone's got to be played out of position.
It does. So maybe we'll see Kellen Acosta pushed out wide. We saw that last round of friendlies. Maybe it's Timothy Weah again, but with a little more instruction and one more game to kind of show off. Maybe it's even Julian Green pushed out wide and kind of using pace and crossing ability to cause problems. Again, that's still a player being played out of position there.
Could I throw in another weird option? It's something that I think Klinsmann did a couple of times. Bobby Wood on the right.
Why would you like to see that?
Only because it's a way to get him on the field and then we can start Josh Sargent as a forward and still have Bobby Wood out there.
Yeah.
And, I mean, he does offer some, like, really direct threat when he has the ball from the right, but I wouldn't expect... And he's always going to work hard, right? No one ever questions Bobby Wood's work ethic. I don't know about his defensive positioning and if he could cut off all the angles correctly. Yeah. I'd be interested to see it, not as a long-term solution, but as a short-term stopgap because we just lack right wingers on the roster.
All right. Yeah. It's possible. It's possible. I doubt we see it because I feel like if anything, Dave Sarachan will.
I doubt it too, but I think I'm so confused by this roster. I'm just throwing out all kinds of possible combos.
Yeah. All right. What about in the holding midfield area? Do you think first of all, do you think we'll stick with a kind of 4-2-3-1 sort of shape? Do you think we go back to the 4-1-4-1?
So you may remember in our Colombia review, I was really advocating for the idea that we should have just gone with straight 3 centre midfielders, right? So instead of Julian Green, I would have liked to see like Bradley Trapp and Acosta, or Bradley Delgado and Acosta, and just have more defensive presence in the middle. Against Peru, I'd weirdly be happy with what we did against Colombia because of what you talked about, which is that the best chance of winning the ball off Peru was to pressure them high-ish, win the ball there, and go. So
you're basically saying like have maybe not these players, but for purposes of what we did in Colombia, have like Julian Green and Bobby Wood higher up the field, putting that pressure on early. Yeah. But then if maybe they bypass that pressure,
which we did against Colombia, right?
Yeah. But then if that doesn't work, maybe then Julian Green drops off a little bit and we get more numbers in the midfield.
Which basically that's what happened against Colombia, right? Julian Green did that weird hybrid. Sometimes he's a forward, sometimes he's like the point of a midfield triangle. Like he was very much in between. I'm not sure I'm thrilled that it'd be Julian Green again. But again, I'm not sure who else it could possibly be.
Josh Sargent.
Josh Sargent? No, because Josh Sargent's more of just a straight-up forward, right? Josh Sargent will be playing the Bobby Wood role.
I mean, well, yeah, but then if you've got Bobby Wood on the right wing, who knows anymore?
I mean, yeah, but for me, maybe. Okay, so Sargent as the actual striker, Bobby Wood on the right wing.
I had Novakovic as the actual striker with Josh Sargent dropping in.
Yeah, so I don't see Josh Sargent being... I don't know if he's not able to, but I've never seen him do the job where you're not just the straight-up forward, right? Like, I've never seen him come back and join the midfield at all.
I mean, he is, 18? So, like,
yeah. No, I'm saying, I'm not trying to argue with you. I'm just saying I've never seen that, so I'd be quite surprised to see him asked to play that role. Yeah. Not against it. I just, it's not a natural fit for him based on what I've seen.
Yeah. But I think, again, what we're kind of dancing around is that there's lots of things that could happen, but there's a lot of square pegs, round holes sort of situations.
Yeah.
No matter what you do, it seems like there's going to be people out of position, and then all you can do is kind of hope.
We can't play 4 people at left wing.
Yeah, exactly. And then you just kind of hope that they adjust to it and prepare for it accordingly, which is why maybe we will see. I mean, I don't think we'll see Julian Green start again. I really don't.
You think he'll be one of the changes?
But maybe there's a chance we do because it gives him an opportunity to do that role again, but maybe do it a little bit better because other people haven't had the time. So I think
Dave Sriracha likes him.
Dave Sriracha does. So I think that's, again, it's where I think those are the types of positions where I think we'll definitely see changes, is just those spots where it doesn't seem like there's a lot of other options. So we're maybe going to have to move some stuff around and see what works.
My guess would be possibly that we see either Kenny Saif or Tim Weah as that attacking midfielder, let's call it, like half a striker, half a midfielder.
Okay.
Yeah?
I mean, but can you make the exact same argument that you just did about Josh Sargent about those two?
No, because Josh Sargent I've only ever seen play straight up centre forward.
Okay.
Right? Tim Weah I've seen play deeper. Kenny Saif I've seen play deeper. Again, it's a little bit square peg, round hole, but they're a slightly better fit for the shape than, say, Josh Sargent would have been.
Yeah. That makes sense. I'll tell you, like, I think that what I have on my paper is more of a 4-2-3-1. I have it as Trapp and Acosta, and then maybe Delgado ahead of them, possibly, with Eamon and Weah starting out wide. That's what I've got.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
That would be Eamon on the left, Tim Weah on the right, then Sargent as the striker, and then you had, Trapp and Acosta?
Yep.
And Delgado ahead.
Yeah.
I would have seen Delgado a little deeper, maybe Acosta as the further ahead.
Could be.
I'm guessing you don't care which way around that
I really don't. I mean, but then it's strange because that means leaving Bradley on the bench.
Yeah, why Trapp over Bradley?
Because I feel like he'll give Trapp minutes. This feels like the game where Trapp will get to start again and maybe captain the team as well.
Would that be... So that would be dramatic though, right? Because then there would be a story about Michael Bradley being dropped and sitting on the bench, because it's worth noting that is a thing that's never happened.
Well, there's a chance that it would be that story because it's Michael Bradley, but there have definitely been other times when it's like, this is the guy who starts there, he plays the first game, the second game, the heir apparent or the person who's most close to challenging him starts the next game.
Heir apparent, because Trapp has hair.
Exactly.
What if Bradley plays? I would assume that he then goes in the same sort of double pivot system, Bradley not next to Trapp, right?
See, that's the thing, yeah. So then if you're playing one, it makes it hard to play the other. Maybe Dave Sarachan will roll those dice and see what happens, but it doesn't seem like that really suits either of their games, which is strange because their game is so similar, but that's exactly why I think it could be problematic.
So you have no Kenny Saif in your lineup?
I would happily see him. Basically, I would rather see Jonathan Eamon because I want to see something a little bit different.
Yeah.
I know that Kenny Saif did not have the best game. Maybe that's because we have a report on him later on that we can talk about. But I think I would like to see him in there. Maybe it is that number 10 spot, but I would like to see somebody else out on the left.
So one argument for him playing on the left is that is his position when he plays his club football in Belgium, right? And he had a bad game against Colombia. It's almost like I want to give him another chance because he was actually, for me, the most disappointing player against Colombia was Kenny Saif because he was the guy I was expecting to see the most out of because he's not a kid. Like I expected him to bring a certain maturity and experience that he's already got to the team. And instead, he was definitely part of the problem on the US left, right? So I wouldn't mind just giving him a second chance, essentially telling Robinson and Saif, hey guys, you got a second chance. You're going to take this test that's not as hard as the last one. Go study for it. Best of luck.
All right, yeah. That works for me.
Yeah.
Because, again, I don't think there's any position on here that I feel super strong about. And partially that's because it's a friendly. Partially that's because it's Dave Sarachan still in charge. So it makes it hard for me to be like, no, I want to see this guy definitely being the number one option. And partially it's just because, why not? Like, I don't have a strong enough opinion to be like, no, it definitely can't be this guy. He definitely can't play there. I'm sort of like,
I agree.
Sure. Why not?
The one thing I'll say about Seth is I hope it's not an absolute no-show from him in this game. I'd like to see him just get, if it's another 30 minutes, I'd like to see Kennasayev back on the field for the United States so that he can be the player that, watching him in Belgium, it seems like he can be, right? Like he's a guy with some moves. He's a guy with some hustle. He could be really useful for the US as opposed to being the huge disappointment he was against Colombia.
It's interesting though because again, this is the I guess why soccer is such a complex sport is that I saw plenty of people say he did enough to like cement his spot on continued rosters and he had a good game, which is strange, right? I know, isn't that strange? Mm-hmm. Here we are. So who knows? Maybe Dave Sarachan is in that camp as well. Maybe it's Kenny Safe who starts and has the armband from now on. Seems unlikely.
I would say, do you read anything into him having the number 10 shirt on the roster, of him potentially then playing as that attacking midfielder?
No. Because he didn't last time.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to talk about on this roster or on this game before we move on to the scouting network?
I mean, I know some people. This is one we didn't really talk about in the Colombia game was Zach Steffen's performance overall.
Yeah.
Just because I don't think we really felt like there was much he could have done. That said, I saw a few people pointing out like maybe he could have done better to extend an arm or be in better positioning.
Which goal?
I forget which goal. I can't remember. I just remember there were plenty of people saying
kick, I felt like maybe he could have been in a better spot.
That could be.
Yeah.
But I feel like I saw plenty of people say like I want to see a different goalkeeper or we got to get this goalkeeper out of there. Again, that's Twitter. But I am curious to see if this is Brad Guzan's chance to sort of come in, lock things down, and give us more of a question than it seems like we have.
Yeah, so that the battle is set up for is it Guzan or is it Steffen going forward? I mean, there'll be two performances to judge against each other, if that's what we want to do.
There
right?
you go.
Yeah. Okay, I have nothing else except I'm ready to watch the game and then rewatch it with you and then do our show about it.
Well, I mentioned it very briefly. We haven't talked about him too much. Do you want to see Jonathan Amon in this game? Will you be sad if you don't?
I'll be sad if I don't see him at all.
Yeah.
I'd be happy with a 30-minute appearance for Jonathan Amon because he's only 19. He's not playing at a very high level. I've got some doubts about his sort of ball retention, but at the same time as being excited about his dribble and find a quick 1-2 and make an impact type situation. Like if we're picking left wingers, Tim Weah far and away is going to be way more impactful and creative, and I get a lot more personally just for enjoyment. I get a lot more out of watching Tim Weah play there. So I'm not desperate for Jonathan Amon to start. I'm just interested in him getting his first cap.
All right.
If that's 20 minutes, it's fine. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Well, we shall see. Tuesday night, who plays and where and for how long?
It's going to be, so whenever kickoff time is, it's always an hour before that US Soccer releases the lineup. I'm going to be really having an eye on that to see. I'm fascinated to see what this lineup ends up being.
All right.
I guess we had a long, there's one thing I want to talk about. We had a long conversation about whether Josh Sargent could play that like underneath the striker, half striker type role. If we actually see him play centre forward.
I think the conversation was me suggesting and you saying, I've never seen him do that.
Yeah.
And that was pretty much it.
All right. Well, but listen. If we do see him just play straight up centre forward, what do we expect out of him against grown-up Peruvian defenders?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the big difference, right? Because against Bolivia, we saw him do lots of stuff, but that wasn't maybe against quite such strong opposition. But I would say look for him to do that same sort of role, which is basically linking up and doing quick combination passes to try to get through the defense if it's on. I think we'll probably, though, against Peru, it's going to be much more of him trying to create something from very little, maybe trying to hold the ball up or just be involved in a way that can allow other players to get up the field to give them numbers further up, because we certainly won't be having consistent possession around the top of the box.
That's the interesting thing to me is it'll be, if he starts, it'll be Josh Sargent. It won't be against Bolivia like where he had loads of the ball. It will be you have to do almost a grown-up role where you're the second best team, which is what I'm expecting the US to be at best level pegging.
Strangely, I think I would expect to see him, or I would want to see him essentially do what Bobby Wood did and maybe just do it a little bit better, because outside of Wood's goal, he did like a lot of great running, a lot of great pressure. He really did a ton of work that will not get credit. And so I would almost like to see Josh Sargent do that exact same thing, but it be more noticeable. Of like maybe he wins the ball here, or maybe he forces a long ball that doesn't come off, and then maybe he gets a goal, or maybe he gets an assist. And just
so you're talking defensive side of the game for Josh Sargent.
And like see him stand out just a little bit more in that regard than just, he's got a good first touch and he can shoot.
So final thing I want to say about this, about our preview in many ways, preparing for the USA against Peru, is I don't think we've ever found it so hard to pick a US lineup. And I think that tells us a lot about what's going on with the US soccer men's national team program right now.
I would agree with you.
Yeah.
I think first of all, I think you're absolutely right. Like, you could maybe make some arguments about other times, but really, I think it's because Dave Sarachan, he's the interim manager. This might be his last game, so we're not really building towards anything. Mm-hmm. If this were Greg Berhalter installed as the permanent manager, we might see this as like, okay, is he going to see this? Like, does he want to see Michael Bradley play twice and see if Bradley really can handle this, or is it going to be building towards Will Trapp? Like, it would all feel like building towards something.
Yeah.
And because that's not the case, like,
it's like a false start, right?
Yeah.
This whole year has been kind of a false start. So kickoff series was maybe a misleading, a misnomer. It should have been the interim series.
And I think if I'm being honest, that's part of my probably why I was more frustrated with the Colombia result than other games where we've probably looked worse.
Because didn't you, in the quick take, hot take, I know emotions were running high immediately afterwards on both sides of the table, but I think you said, like, I felt like I've been duped, or I felt like a sucker for watching the game or something.
No, I mean, it wasn't that strong, I don't think. I think it's just more of like I was annoyed with U.S. soccer. Like I said, I put the blame for this game on U.S. soccer because they kept stuck with Dave Sarachan and stuff hasn't really changed. And so here we are. And I kind of feel that way about this Peru game. Like, I'm excited to see the U.S. play whenever they play. But I think a lot of the indecision we feel is because there's no, Kellen Acosta has to perform really well, or Anthony Robinson has to perform really well because now it's the new coach. And if he doesn't...
Lack of pressure.
Yeah.
The lack of pressure
100%.
makes it hard to focus and decide what's important. Because what's important is just getting kids minutes, like you said.
Put it this way. The reaction that we got to that show was, but it'll be different when it's not an interim manager and when like they've made the decisions they made and when all the 4 starters return that aren't there. Like, we're going to be totally, or 3 starters, like, we'll be totally fine. Yeah. And it's like, I think that's part of the problem is that because it's all sort of like, but who cares? Mm-hmm. Like, this is a game that I think...
We take it too seriously, maybe.
Maybe, or maybe it's just we've built a livelihood around covering the U.S. national team and we get frustrated when maybe other people aren't taking it as seriously as we are. Maybe, possibly.
Maybe.
Looking in your direction, Chicago?
I thought you were talking about like a journalist.
No, I was talking about headquarters of U.S. soccer.
All right. Well, for all our frustrations... We'll still be watching.
There you go.
USA versus Peru from East Hartford, Connecticut. Listed kickoff time is 7:30. I say 7:45. Taylor says 7:53. I believe, Eastern. Either way, it is on ESPN2. We'll be back that night to review the game. Maybe the last in the Dave Sarachan era, or maybe not. Depends what happens. Should we move on to the Total Soccer Show's Scouting Network? All right, you mentioned this earlier. Mm-hmm. The first scouting report we have today is all about Kenny Saif. It comes from Stephen Kopech. Kenny Saif, the 24-year-old American midfielder for Anderlecht. Stephen says, this is important information. Prior to his national team call-up, Kenny Saif had only just returned from injury, going 68 minutes in Anderlecht's 2-1 win over Zulte Waregem, which may explain some of Saif's struggles.
Yeah. My question for you, are we just going to go with Saif until we hear otherwise? Like, I know the commentators say Sef. Yeah. We've had some emails about this. What do you think?
I think, here's my guess. So I don't know, right? Yeah. It's worth saying that. I do not know.
I mean, literally, like, what do you think we should do? I'm not even, like, what's correct. I'm just like, what do we want to do?
I'm just going Saif. Because what I think is happening is I think it's actually pronounced Saif, like 2 syllables. But I think Kenny Saif, like, says his name kind of quickly. Like, so it's like Sef. So it's almost like you could hear that as just straight up. But then it gets mistranslated when they do the commentary to just Sef, as if it was S-E-F.
That makes sense.
That's just me guessing, so I'm going to go with Kenny Saif.
Okay, until we hear him pronounce it, and then we'll change it accordingly.
Yeah.
Yes. Until then, we have more reports. John Ramaswamy scouting Sam Rogers, 19-year-old American center back for the Seattle Sounders. Big Sam was named to the USL's 20 under 20 list for the second year in a row. He fell from number 5 to number 15 this year due to injuries and U20 national team commitments, and ended up only making 11 appearances. U20 qualifying starts in November, and John expects Sam to be involved.
All right, Sam Rogers. Katie Sutton is scouting Katie Cousins, the 22-year-old American midfielder for the University of Tennessee. So she's a senior now. Katie Cousins saw limited action. I understand American schooling.
There you go.
Katie Cousins saw limited action during a 3-0 loss to University of Tennessee's arch nemesis, Vanderbilt. Boo? I guess. For the purpose of the scouting report, I'm going to be pro University of Tennessee.
Yeah.
Cousins was subbed off 35 minutes into the first half, and the announcers commented she was not 100% healthy. Post-game interview, her coach said it was a little something she picked up in training and quickly changed the subject. They hope to have Katie and Bunny Shaw, who's still with the Jamaican national team, back for the end of SEC regular play and SEC conference tournament.
Do you know what SEC is?
Securities and Exchange Commission.
Loophole.
Southeast Conference?
There you go. You got it, buddy. I mean, I think, is it Southeastern? I forget. Either way, you got it right. Roughly correct, yeah.
Roughly correct.
Now you got it right.
The best kind of correct.
There we go.
S. Marty.
Nick Imhoff scouting Emmanuel Sabi, 20-year-old American forward for Hobro IK. Emmanuel Sabi has gotten 10 appearances so far this season for Hobro, who currently sit in 14th and last place in the Danish Superliga. He's been playing either as a center forward or wide attacker on the right wing. See, he could play on right wing for the United States. Maybe he should get in the camp right away.
He has 5 goals, 1 assist,
yeah.
Nick Imhoff told me. So, so maybe. I actually think if Jonathan Amon does well, then it does open the door a little bit for Emmanuel Sabi and also Romain Gar.
For the Scandinavian contingent.
Yeah, it's like, the Scandinavia works. Yeah, so it's all riding on. No pressure, Jonathan. No pressure. Ben Richards is scouting Efren Alvarez, the 16-year-old Mexican-American, I'm going to say, midfielder for LA Galaxy 2. What's happened, Taylor?
I mean, he's made his choices.
Ben says Efren joined the Mexico U17 squad for the 2018 Four Nations tournament, where he helped them triumph over the US, Chile, and Argentina. Yeah, Scuffed was tweeting some of this in basically internet tears.
Yep.
He scored the goal. Efrain scored the goal of the mini tournament with a long-range dipping effort against Chile that, stop me if you've heard this before, seemed to take everyone by surprise. Yes, that's what he's been doing in USL, right? Meanwhile, Efra was number 17 in the MLS 22 under-22 list, the youngest player on the list, an impressive showing considering he has yet to play a minute in Major League Soccer.
Yay, Galaxy.
Yeah, thanks the LA Galaxy.
Indeed.
Yeah. It's still not 100%, right? He's still open. He's still dual national. He's a man with 2 nationalities. He could still be an American international.
It's a one-time switch situation, though, right? Is that where he is? Or is he... Because he hasn't played for them in an official FIFA competition yet? I think
he could do a one-time switch, yes. There'd be a bit of paperwork involved, but it could be done.
Okay. But actually, I'm not even sure because if he hasn't played with them at a FIFA competition at youth level, he might not even have to file the switch yet.
Oh, interesting.
I think you can. That's why you have players who have like appearances for the U15 and U17 national teams jumping back and forth.
All right, I trust you, but I'm not willing to co-sign.
That's fair. Nor should you ever. Steve Renard scouting.
Same for the SEC thing. I'm not fully convinced that you know.
That's fine too. Steve Renard scouting Yuri Tielemans, the 21-year-old Belgian midfielder for AS Monaco. Tielemans was one of 5 Monaco players to see yellow after Monaco defender Andrea Raggi earned a red card for punching his mark in the side of the head during a set-piece scrum in the box during a 2-1 loss to Rennes. Fun times in Monaco. Steve's concern remains that Tielemans might not be physically fast enough to get back and defend when things go wrong for Monaco, as they've been going wrong a lot this season. An addendum to this report is that they've been going so badly that manager Leonardo Jardim has been replaced by Thierry Henry.
Yeah, TT is the Monaco coach. That's exciting stuff.
It's a weird world we live in.
It is, right? Yeah, shouldn't he be playing?
It feels that way.
Right? Or maybe we're just getting older. Ryan Marzak is scouting Pione Sisto, the 23-year-old Danish midfielder for Celta Vigo. Sisto, Ryan calls him, has only started 1 of the last 4 matches and is only averaging 30 minutes per appearance in that time.
Bench Sito?
I think he's going to have to be, Piano Bench Sito.
There you go. Ryan Marzak again scouting Josh Onoma, the 21-year-old English midfielder on loan at Sheffield Wednesday from Tottenham. The English Modric is finding his groove in the Championship. Onoma has started the last 3 matches for Sheffield Wednesday, logging an assist in each of the last 2 fixtures. Against West Brom, he played some beautiful soccer down the wing and made a perfect pass to Adam Reach, who scored a fantastic goal from outside the box.
Sounds like a reach.
At Bristol City, boo. He found himself at the top of the box and made the right pass to Luka Zhao, who slotted it home for the eventual match winner.
Taylor Makaria is scouting Ademola Lookman, the 20-year-old English midfielder for Everton who wants to move to Germany. Taylor says England's under-21s beat Andorra's under-21s, I believe it was 7-0, to secure their place in the under-21 World Cup. That's not a thing, is it? The Under-20 World Cup, that's got to be, yeah. Ademola Lookman started and scored the opening goal in the 7-0 drubbing.
The tradition continues.
Hey, Everton, maybe it's time to give him some starts.
Yes, I would agree. Listen, Everton, as I'm sure the entire organization does.
They all sit down and listen to every show.
Of course.
Yeah.
Todd Ito scouting Takafusa Kubo, 17-year-old Japanese attacker on loan at Yokohama F. Marinos from FC Tokyo.
Do you wish he got on loan to
I really, really do.
A shorter team name.
Yes. YFM is where he's playing. Takafusa Kubo made the Guardians' Next Generation. I also don't love this title, by the way.
What?
Takafusa Kubo made the Guardians' Next Generation 2018 list of the best 60 young talents in world football.
Why don't you like that?
Guardians Next Generation 2018. It just sounds weird. It should like the 2018 Guardian list? I don't know. It's got to be something weird, like stranger than that.
Take it up with the Guardian editor.
I will.
The
blurb is mostly a recap of Kubo's career to date. It does, however, conclude with a couple of juicy transfer rumors about possible moves to PSG or Man City once Kubo turns 18.
I've noticed, actually, I read that Guardian list. There's a lot of Scouting Network players on there, but what they do often is if a player is not playing for a big team, they will note that there are rumours linking them to a big team. Because that's the evidence. Because you can only be a good player if you play for Man City or Barcelona or PSG, right?
Do you wonder if maybe if you search like Takefusa Kubo rumors, the first article that would come up was The Guardian, and then there'd be several like links referring to that article?
It's possible. I bet it goes back further than that. I do know that Conrad De La Fuente made that list.
There we go.
As well. He was the one American flag that I saw on there. Oscar Leung is scouting Michael Obafemi, the 18-year-old Nigerian-Irish forward for Southampton. Oscar says Obafemi scored as the U23s put 2 past Leeds in the Premier League Cup, displayed on-the-ball ability by faking the hapless defender Pascal Struijk to the ground before finding the back of the net. I love a scouting report that names and shames the defender. Obafemi missed Ireland's U19 friendlies against Wales due to illness, but is still keen to represent the country.
So no worries there, the Irish. Cole Burgess, final report, scouting Steven Bergwijn. I don't know. It's Dutch. 21-year-old Dutch winger for PSV. Bergwijn, Bergwijn. How do you do Wijnaldum? JN.
Wijnaldum.
Yeah.
So Bergwijn.
Bergwijn. There we go.
That makes sense,
there.
right?
Yeah.
Unless it's Wijnaldum. Some people go Wijnaldum. I made it harder for you.
Bergwijn earned his first senior national team call-up for the Netherlands UEFA Nations League match against Germany, which the Dutch won 3-0. Bergwijn is reportedly drawing interest from bigger clubs like Liverpool and Manchester United.
It must be on the next generation.
Yeah,
list.
exactly.
Thank you to everybody for sending their scouting reports. If you'd like to join the Scouting Network and support the show, it is totalsoccershow.com/join. If you'd like to support today's sponsor, download the SeatGeek app, put TSS in the settings. Taylor Rockwell, thank you for taking the time to talk to me today.
Yokohama F. Marinos.
Listeners,
right back at you, buddy.
Listeners, thank you for listening. We will talk to you again tomorrow after the USA v Peru game. You gotta slice it.